Now, even though the world of video games is absolutely massive with games like sports games and Halo and even racing games, even though people have massive game consoles like the Xbox One and the PS5, people will still tend to play a lot of, I don't know, something like Five Nights at Freddy's. So, today I am gonna talk about something which I think would actually be an awesome idea to bring up, since the fact is that this is not really an idea that a lot of people tend to bring up. Some people tend to do it. What would happen if we brought Five Nights at Freddy's to the iPod? Now, even though Five Nights at Freddy's without a doubt is one of the most successful and most popular game series of the 2010s, this one especially, I have to say that Five Nights at Freddy's without a doubt is probably one of the most surprising ones, since it's such a simple game which evolved to absolutely massive standards. There's a movie on it that's coming out later this month. But now I have brought up the main elephant of the room, which is, could you run Five Nights at Freddy's on an iPod? Now, obviously, I have to say, this is just a video that I wanted to make sure that I could actually give off so it would actually look like that it's actually running, although this is just for display purposes. So I have to say that it is possible to run Five Nights at Freddy's on the iPod. Now, obviously, the main thing is that what kind of Five Nights at Freddy's games are we talking about, though? Now, obviously, I'm talking mainly about Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Now, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is obviously probably the second best game in the series. I think it's it's a little more, it seems like it's a little more simpler than the first game, which I actually have loaded right here. I'll actually show. The main difference is that there's a few different controls against the first game, but the thing is that it is possible to run Five Nights at Freddy's on the iPod. Now, what kind of iPods am I talking about? The 6th gen iPods. Now, the 6th gen iPods are basically the ones with the aluminum front. As you can see, it is a charcoal gray with 80 gigs in it, although I did flash mod this as well. Now, the thing is that the reason why I want to bring this up is that I think that running Five Nights at Freddy's on an iPod would actually be one of the coolest tricks on an iPod, because yes, this can't run Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, but this can possibly run Five Nights at Freddy's 2, maybe even Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Now, obviously, I have not done any sort of work to go and try to prove that this is possible. I know that a lot of you are probably looking down or probably rolling your eyes now saying, how do you know it's gonna run then? Well, the thing is that it's more of a proof of concept. It's basically, how could Five Nights at Freddy's run on an iPod? First of all, the thing is that this would have to be through Rockbox. It cannot go through the normal OS that the iPod has been known for, and because of how the OS is limited with iTunes and stuff like that. In fact, it got to a point to where I don't even think iTunes even supports games for the iPod anymore, even downloading games, which is where Rockbox has to come in. Now, obviously, the reason why I want to say Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is the most simple and without a doubt probably the best game for the iPod anyway, is because of how simple the game is. Now, the reason I want to say that is I will show a picture about how I would basically, if I were to develop Five Nights at Freddy's 2 for the iPod, which I'm not going to because I don't have that skill. Although if any of you want to develop Five Nights at Freddy's 2 for the iPod, here's how I'd want to do it. Now, basically, this is how I would do it. Obviously, you can see the play pause button is for the camera system. The scroll wheel could either be used for the camera system with switching cameras, or for the mask. The back and forward buttons would both be used for the vents, either turning on the lights and going to the vents and switching the angle of what you're doing. The middle button would be used as a flashlight and a bit more. Now, obviously, I have to say, this is obviously a iPhone version or an iPod Touch version of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 that is running on this iPod. Now, obviously, there's quite a bit to go into if there was a version of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 on the iPod. It is possible. It is definitely possible to run Five Nights at Freddy's 2 on an iPod, although it takes a lot because you have to go into Rockbox and then you have to develop code for it, which would actually be enough to be able to get this to run on the iPod, which obviously you can see is it would now I don't know what kind of version or how it would look. I think it would look almost the same thing as if you're playing on mobile or something, it wouldn't be so hard to run Five Nights at Freddy's 2 or actually play Five Nights at Freddy's 2. It's the later games that would be the harder ones, because Sister Location would definitely be one of the harder ones to run, because the fact is that there's so much that goes into Sister Location that there's no chance to be able to get this to run Sister Location even if you coded it down to where it can work with the click wheel. You've seen dank pods with Doom, with Wikipedia on an iPod mini. Imagine playing Sister Location on an iPod, trying to go through all those levels and stuff like that. It would be freaking insane. You can't go into this entire thing with Sister Location. Five Nights at Freddy's 1 would be a little more complicated because it has a few more controls. Even though it's kind of close to the similarities, it's not quite as simple still. I mean, it's very simple. I think it would actually be a little harder, but not too much harder. But I do have to say that Five Nights at Freddy's 3 would be harder, and then Five Nights at Freddy's 4 would definitely be a little harder. Sister Location would probably be the point where you would want to stop unless you want to go into it more. Although I do have to say that if Five Nights at Freddy's were to be available on the iPod, how would it be? It would basically be, the click wheel would obviously take advantage of how the controls work. It would be a very simple game to be able to run. It wouldn't be too hard to run, especially with like how the complicated controls with how like the whole Five Nights at Freddy's controls work. I think it's a very simple way to be able to run Five Nights at Freddy's 2. In my opinion, I think that generally it's very easy to run Five Nights at Freddy's 2 if you were to try to code it down. Although if any of you want to try to code Five Nights at Freddy's 2 for the iPod Classic, what iPods would it be able to be available for? It would mainly be available for the 6th gens because these would be a lot easier to run. It's got more RAM in it. But it also could go up to 5.5 and the 5th gens. iPod Nanos would be a little harder to get, I guess. I don't know how would that work. But if I have to say that I think that if anything, it would be a very fun way to be able to go into Five Nights at Freddy's. The iPod Photo would definitely be a little harder as well because, well, I think it would still run, but I don't know how well it'd run. But these are the main iPods that I would want to run with Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Although that's just my opinion. If any of you do want to try to code or make some sort of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 version for the iPod, please do credit this video down in the description, at least on whatever game you're doing. Because I think that if anything, I kind of have the idea to put the idea out there. And I'm not really a person who develops games or wants to do too much development because I don't know if I would be good at that. But I want to say, it is definitely a cool concept to be able to run Five Nights at Freddy's on an iPod. I think it would actually be one of the better things. I think it would actually be really cool to be able to try with the click wheel and stuff like that. I do have to say, thank you so much for watching this little video. I'm sorry this video is a little shorter. I wanted to bring an idea up about Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and the iPod. I'm sorry I've been doing so many Five Nights at Freddy's videos often. I do have another Five Nights at Freddy's video that will be coming out next week, so I have to say, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this little idea. Hopefully, if any of you wants to make a copy of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, do please leave this video in the description of whatever game you're doing. Comment, like, subscribe. I will talk about this iPod Classic in another video. I'll see you guys later. Bye. Five Nights at Freddy's 4, thank you for bringing us home.